Hello and welcome back to the 9th installment of this Lenten Retreat. I'm very happy to welcome you today because we're going to be looking into one of my favorite books of the Bible, the story of Job. It was written about 700 to 500 years before Christ. It's sandwiched in the Old Testament between Maccabees and Psalms. It's a magnificent work and continues our study as we continue to discern suffering. And so, without much ado, because we only have half an hour to begin and finish this book, let us begin. Job's wealth and piety. In the land of Uz, there was a blameless and upright man named Job, who feared God and avoided evil. 7 sons and 3 daughters were born to him, and he had 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 she-asses, and a great number of work animals, so that he was greater than any of the men of the East. His sons used to take turns giving feasts, sending invitations to their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. And when each feast had run its course, Job would send for them and sanctify them, rising early and offering holocausts for every one of them. For Job said, "It may be that my sons have sinned and blasphemed God in their hearts." This Job did habitually. One day, when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, Satan also came among them. And the Lord said to Satan, "Whence do you come?" Then Satan answered the Lord and said, "From roaming the earth and patrolling it." And the Lord said to Satan, "Have you noticed my servant Job, and that there is no one on earth like him, blameless and upright, fearing God and avoiding evil?" But Satan answered the Lord and said, "Is it for nothing that Job is God-fearing? Have you not surrounded him and his family and all that he has with your protection? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his livestock are spread over the land. But now, put forth your hand and touch anything that he has, and surely he will blaspheme you to your face." And the Lord said to Satan, "Behold, all that he has is in your power, only do not lay hand upon his person." So Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord. The first trial. And so one day, while his sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in the house of their eldest brother, a messenger came to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing, and the asses grazing beside them, and the sea bands carried them off in a raid. They put the herdsmen to the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you." While he was yet speaking, another came and said, "Lightning has fallen from heaven, and struck the sheep and their shepherds, and consumed them, and I alone have escaped to tell you." While he was yet speaking, another came and said, "The Chaldeans formed 3 columns, seized the camels, carried them off, and put those tending them to the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you." While he was yet speaking, another came and said, "Your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in the house of their eldest brother, when suddenly a great wind came across the desert and smote the 4 corners of the house. It fell upon the young, and they are dead, and I alone have escaped to tell you." Then Job began to tear his cloak and cut off his hair. He cast himself prostrate upon the ground and said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I go back again. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." In all this, Job did not sin, nor did he say anything disrespectful of God. The second trial. Once again, the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. And the Lord said to Satan, "Whence do you come?" And Satan answered the Lord and said, "From roaming the earth and patrolling it." And the Lord said to Satan, "Have you noticed my servant Job, and that there is no one on earth like him, faultless and upright, fearing God and avoiding evil? He still holds fast to his innocence, although you incited me against him to ruin him without cause." And Satan answered the Lord and said, "Skin for skin. All that a man has will he give for his life. But now Put forth your hand and touch his bone and his flesh, and surely he will blaspheme you to your face. And the Lord said to Satan, He is in your power, only spare his life. So Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord, and smote Job with severe boils from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. And he took a potsherd to scrape himself, as he sat among the ashes. Then his wife said to him, Are you still holding to your innocence? Curse God and die. But he said to her, Are even you going to speak as senseless women do? We accept good things from God, and should we not accept evil? Through all this, Job said nothing sinful. Now he receives 3 friends. Now, when 3 of Job's friends heard of all the misfortune that had come upon him, they set out, each one from his own place, Eliphaz from Teman, Bildad from Shu, and Zophar from Naamath. They met and journeyed together to give him sympathy and comfort. But when at a distance they lifted up their eyes and did not recognize him, they began to weep aloud. They tore their cloaks and threw dust upon their heads. Then they sat down upon the ground with him 7 days and 7 nights, but none of them spoke a word to him, for they saw how great was his suffering. After this, Job opened his mouth and cursed his day. Job spoke out and said, Perish the day on which I was born, the night when they said, The child is a boy. May that day be darkness. Let not God above call for it, nor light shine upon it. May darkness and gloom claim it, clouds settle upon it. The blackness of night affright it. May obscurity seize that day. Let it not occur among the days of the year, nor enter into the count of the months. May that night be barren. Let no joyful outcry greet it. Let them curse it who curse the sea. They appointed disturbers of Leviathan. May the stars of its twilight be darkened. May it look for daylight, but have none, nor gaze on the eyes of the dawn. So you get a picture how now he's become very upset about what's going on, and he's become regretful, and now he's begun to mourn all that he has lost. The first speech of his friend Eliphaz says, If someone attempts a word with you, will you mind? For how can anyone refrain from speaking? Behold, you have instructed many, and have made firm their feeble hands. Your words have upheld the stumbler. You have strengthened the faltering knees. But now it comes to you. You are impatient. When it touches yourself, you are dismayed. Call now. Will anyone respond to you? To which the holy ones will you appeal? Nay, the impatience kills the fool, and the indignations slays the simpleton. I have seen a fool spreading his roots, but his household suddenly decayed. His children shall be far from safety. They shall be crushed at the gate, without a rescuer. What they have reaped the hungry shall eat up, or God shall take it away by blight, and the thirsty shall swallow their substance. So that's his friend answering him. And then we have Job, who replies to Eliphaz, and he says, Ah, could my anguish but be measured, and my calamity laid with it in the scales, they would now outweigh the sands of the sea. Because of this I speak without restraint. For the arrows of the Almighty pierce me, and my spirit drinks in their poison. The terrors of God are arrayed against me. Does the wild ass bray when he has grass? Does the ox low over his fodder? Can a thing insipid be eaten without salt? Is there flavor in the white of an egg? I refuse to touch them. They are loathsome food to me. Is not man's life on earth a drudgery? Are not his days those of a hireling? He is a slave who longs for the shade, a hireling who waits for his wages. So I have been assigned months of misery, and troubled nights have been told off for me. If in bed I say, When shall I arise? Then the night drags on. I am filled with restlessness until the dawn. My flesh is clothed with worms and scabs. My skin cracks and festers. My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle. They come to an end without hope. Remember that my life is like the wind. I shall not see happiness again. Then Bildad speaks and says, "How long will you utter such things? The words from your mouth are like a mighty wind. Does God pervert judgment? And does the Almighty distort justice? If your children have sinned against him, and he has left them in the grip of their guilt, still, if you yourself have recourse to God, and make supplication to the Almighty, should you be blameless and upright? Surely now he will awake for you and restore your rightful domain. Your former state will be of little moment, for in time you will flourish indeed." So he's encouraging him to say, be patient. In time, God will restore everything to you. But don't judge God. Job replies and says, "I know well that it is so, but how can a man be justified before God? Should one wish to contend with him, he could not answer him once in 1,000 times. God is wise in heart and mighty in strength, who has withstood him and remained unscathed. He removes the mountains before they know it. He overturns them in his anger. He shakes the earth out of its place, and the pillars beneath it tremble. He commands the sun, and it rises not. He seals up the stars. He alone stretches out the heavens and treads upon the crests of the sea. He made the Bear and the Orion, the Pleiades and the constellations of the south. He does great things past finding out, marvelous things beyond reckoning." So there, Job acknowledges the greatness and the almightiness of God. "Why then did you bring me forth from the womb? I should have died, and no eye have seen me. I should be as though I had never lived. I should have been taken from the womb to the grave. Are not the days of my life few now? Let me alone, that I may recover a little." Zophar responds to him and says, "Should not the man of many words be answered, or must the garrulous man necessarily be right? Shall your babblings keep men silent? And shall you deride and no one give rebuke? Shall you say, 'My teaching is pure, and I am clean in your sight'? But oh, that God would speak and open his lips against you. Can you penetrate the designs of God? Dare you vie with the perfection of the Almighty? It is higher than the heavens. What can you do? It is deeper than the netherworld. What can you know? It is longer than the earth in measure, and broader than the sea. If he seize and imprison or call to judgment, who then can say him nay? For he knows the worthlessness of men and sees iniquity. Will he then ignore it? Will empty man then gain understanding, and the wild jackass be made docile? If you set your heart aright and stretch out your hands toward him, if you remove all iniquity from your conduct, and let not injustice dwell in your tent, surely then you may lift up your face in innocence. You may stand firm and unafraid." Job replies to Zophar and says, "No doubt, you are the intelligent folk, and with you wisdom shall die. But I have intelligence as well as you, for who does not know such things as these? I have become the sport of my neighbors. The one whom God answers when he calls upon him, the just, the perfect man, is a laughing-stock. The undisturbed esteem my downfall a disgrace, such as awaits unsteady feet. Yet the tents of robbers are prosperous, as those who provoke God are secure." So now he is mourning the incredible reputation he had in town, and how now he has become a laughing-stock, whereas one time he was esteemed as a great man. Eliphaz responds, "Should a wise man answer with airy opinions, or puff himself up with wind? Should he argue in speech which is not avail, and in words which are to no profit? You, in fact, do away with piety, and you lessen devotion toward God, because your wickedness instructs your mouth, and you choose to speak like the crafty. Your own mouth condemns you, not I. Your own lips refute you." Job responds, "I have heard this sort of thing many times. Wearisome comforters are you all. Is there no end to windy words? Or what sickness have you that you speak on? I also could talk as you do, were you in my place." Bildad answers and says, "When will you put an end to words? Reflect, and then we can have discussion. Why are we accounted like the beasts, their equals in your sight? You who tear yourself in your anger, shall the earth be neglected on your account? Job responds, How long will you vex my soul, grind me down with words? These 10 times you have reviled me, have assailed me with shame. Be it indeed that I am at fault, and that my fault remains with me. If so, if you would vaunt yourselves against me, and cast up to me my reproach, know then that God has dealt unfairly with me, and compassed me round with his net. If I cry out injustice, I am not heard. I cry for help, but there is no redress. He has barred my way, and I cannot pass. He has veiled my path in darkness. He has stripped me of my glory, and taken the diadem from my brow. He breaks me down on every side, and I am gone. My hope he has uprooted like a tree. His wrath he has kindled against me. He counts me among his enemies. His troops advance as one man. They build up their road to attack me, and they encamp around my tent. My brethren have withdrawn from me, and my friends are wholly estranged. My kinsfolk and companions neglect me, and my guests have forgotten me. Even my handmaids treat me as a stranger. I am an alien in their sight. I call my servant, but he gives no answer, though in my speech I plead with him. My breath is abhorred by my wife. I am loathsome to the men of my family. The young children, too, despise me. When I appear, they speak against me. All my intimate friends hold me in horror. Those whom I loved have turned against me. My bones cleave to my skin, and I have escaped with my flesh between my teeth. Pity me, are you my friends, for the hand of God has struck me. Then Zophar answers him and says, A rebuke which puts me to shame I hear, and because of this I am disturbed. So now my thoughts provide me with an answer, and from my understanding a spirit gives me reply. Do you not know this from olden times, since man was placed upon the earth, that the triumph of the wicked is short, and the joy of the impious but for a moment? Though his pride mount up to the heavens, and his head reach to the clouds, yet he perishes forever like the fuel of his fire, and the onlookers say, Where is he? Like a dream he takes flight, and is not found again. He fades away like a vision of the night. The eye which saw him does no more, nor shall his dwelling again behold him. Job then replies, At least listen to my words, and let that be the consolation you offer. Bear with me while I speak, and after I've spoken you can mock. So he's had enough. He doesn't want to hear anymore. He says, stop, give me a break. Then Eliphaz says, Can a man be profitable to God, though to himself a wise man be profitable? Can anyone teach God knowledge, seeing that he judges those on high? Is it advantage to the Almighty if you are just? Job says, Though I know my complaint is bitter, his hand is heavy upon me in my groanings. Oh, that today I might find him, that I might come to his judgment seat. I would set out my cause before him, and fill my mouth with arguments. I would learn the words with which he would answer, and understand what he would reply to me. Even should he contend against me, with his great power, yet with that he himself might heed me. There the upright man might reason with him, and I should once and for all preserve my rights. So now he's saying, if only I could get his ear, if only we could just be man to man and just have this talk, I would let him have his full, and I would tell him exactly what I think of him. So now let's listen to what God has to say. Then the Lord addressed Job out of the storm and said, Who is this that obscures divine plans with words of ignorance? Gird up your loins now like a man. I will question you, and you tell me the answers. Where were you when I founded the earth? Tell me, if you have understanding. Who determined its size? Do you know? Who stretched out the measuring line for it? Into what were its pedestals sunk, and who laid the cornerstone? While the morning stars sang in chorus, and all the sons of God shouted for joy? And who shut within doors the sea when it burst forth from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment, and thick darkness its swaddling bands. When I set limits for it and fastened the bar of its door, and said, Thus far shall you come, but no further, and here shall your proud waves be stilled. Have you ever in your lifetime commanded the morning and shown the dawn its place? For taking hold of the ends of the earth, till the wicked are shaken from its surface. The earth is changed as is clay by the seal, and dyed as though it were a garment. But from the wicked the light is withheld, and the arm of pride is shattered. Have you entered into the sources of the sea, or walked about in the depths of the abyss? Have the gates of death been shown to you? Or have you seen the gates of darkness? Have you comprehended the breadth of the earth? Tell me, if you know all, which is the way to the dwelling place of light, and where is the abode of darkness, that you may take them to their boundaries and set them on their homeward paths. You know, because you were born before them, and the number of your years is great. Of course, now God is mocking him. Have you entered the storehouse of the snow, and seen the treasury of the hail, which I have reserved for times of stress, for the days of war and of battle? Which way to the parting of the seas, whence the east wind spreads over the earth? Who has laid out a channel for the downpour, and for the thunderstorm a path, to bring rain to no man's land, the unpeopled wilderness, to enrich the waste and desolate ground, till the desert blooms with verdure? Has the rain a father, or who has begotten the drops of dew? Out of whose womb comes the ice, and who gives the hoarfrost its birth in the skies, when the waters lie covered as though with stone that holds captive the surface of the deep? Have you fitted a curb to the Pleiades, or loosened the bonds of Orion? Can you bring forth the Mazzaroth in their season, or guide the bear with its train? Do you know the ordinances of the heavens? Can you put into effect their plan on the earth? Can you raise your voice among the clouds, or veil yourself in the waters of the storm? Can you send forth the lightnings on their way, or will they say to you, Here we are? Who counts the clouds in his wisdom? Or who tilts the water jars of heaven, so that the dust of earth is fused into mass, and its clods made solid? Do you hunt the prey for the lioness, or appease the hunger for her cubs, while they crouch in their dens, or lie in wait in the thicket? Who puts wisdom in the heart and gives the cock its understanding, who provides nourishment for the ravens when their young ones cry out to God, and they rove abroad without food. And so God continues his monologue, speaking about all that he can do and how Job can't possibly know any of it. Then Job answered the Lord and said, I know that you can do all things, and that no purpose of yours can be hindered. I have dealt with great things that I do not understand, things too wonderful for me which I cannot know. I had heard of you by word of mouth, but now my eye has seen you. Therefore I disowned what I have said, and repent in dust and ashes. And it came to pass, after the Lord had spoken these words to Job, that the Lord said to Eliphaz the Temanite, I am angry with you and with your 2 friends, for you have not spoken rightly concerning me, as has my servant Job. Now what he was saying was that the 3 wise men were trying to explain the mind of God. Very dangerous, and one cannot do that. Job, on the other hand, said, you know what? I can't possibly fathom what you do or why you do it, and I'd rather just say I don't know, and that you are God and you are Almighty. Now, even though the 3 wise men were trying to help him and were trying to speak about the greatness of God, still they were trying to explain to him why God might have done these things, and were also judging him and so forth. One cannot do that. Really, only God knows God's mind, and so we ought to always lie on humility and take that path rather than try to understand and come up with reasons why God would have done the things that he has done. And so that's where they sinned. Now therefore take 7 bullocks and 7 rams, and go to my servant Job, and offer up a holocaust for yourselves, and let my servant Job pray for you. For his prayer I will accept, not to punish you severely. For you have not spoken rightly concerning me, as has my servant Job. Then Eliphaz the Temanite, and Bildad the Shuhite, And Zophar the Naamite went and did as the Lord had commanded them. And the Lord accepted the intercession of Job. Also the Lord restored the prosperity of Job after he had prayed for his friends. The Lord even gave Job twice as much as he had before. Then all his brethren and his sisters came to him, and all his former acquaintances, and they dined with him in his house. They condoled with him and comforted him for all the evil which the Lord had brought upon him, and each one gave him a piece of money and a gold ring. Thus the Lord blessed the latter days of Job more than his earlier ones, for he had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 she-asses. And he had 7 sons and 3 daughters, of whom he called the first Jemimah, the second Keziah, and the third Karen-Hepuk. In all the land no other women were as beautiful as the daughters of Job. And their father gave them an inheritance among their brethren. After this, Job lived 140 years, and he saw his children, his grandchildren, and even his great-grandchildren. Then Job died old and full of years. Truly, that is a marvelous, beautiful story, and one that is a terrific lesson on suffering, and to listen the dialogues between the wise man and God and Job is just absolutely magnificent. And so here it says, the lesson is that even the just may suffer here, and their sufferings are a test of their fidelity. They shall be rewarded in the end. Man's finite mind cannot probe the depths of the divine omniscience that governs the world, which is what we were talking about, that one should be very careful not to try to probe the mind of God, because only God knows why God does the things that he does. The problems we encounter can be solved by a broader and deeper awareness of God's power, presence, and wisdom. And that's how we can glorify God, is to accept all that happens to us without getting judgmental of God, to seek God's help and his grace, to be able to move on in life, and to wait on God. Truly, that is the test that we have to show God our fidelity, is to wait on him, to allow him to make everything right. And in the end, as you can see with Job, why everything that he had was doubled. Everything that he had was doubled, and so he had more than when he first started off. Of course, he did have to acknowledge that he did acted wrongly. He did have to confess and acknowledge his sinfulness, and then he had to plead for the 3 wise men who meant him good, but that taught us all a lesson not to judge God and not to try to fathom the will of God in our lives. And so let us thank God for this beautiful story, that we were able to enjoy such a beautiful story that teaches us all about suffering. And I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed reading it for you. You may want to pick it up and read it. It's a very, very short story. And so you can delve in and read it on your own time, and read all the speeches and see how the beauty of the imagery in these pages is absolutely magnificent. So once again, I thank you for joining me on this 9th installment. I hope that you will join me again tomorrow as we continue this very sacred, solemn time of this Lenten season. God bless you. Continue to read Scripture and stay in the faith. Amen.